Welcome into One of One Sports. It's been a while since we did one of these prediction videos. Had a lot going on. I got sick, and then obviously you can see new stuff, a face reveal actually. So a whole new setup here. Um, but yeah, so it's time to get back into it and predict the college football playoff semifinal games. We got Penn State, Notre Dame. We got Ohio State, Texas. So before we get into all that, though, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe. Help me grow my YouTube channel. On the season, we're 104 and 52 overall and 60 and 19 on game breakdowns. Pretty good record. Really like those numbers. We got two today, so hopefully make it 62 and 19 on the breakdowns and 106 and 52 overall. So getting right into it with Notre Dame, Penn State. That's our first college football playoff semifinal game. And before I get into my keys to game, I thought it's worth mentioning that because Penn State played the first game on a Friday, or not on Friday, but they played the first game, and then Notre Dame's game got postponed an extra day. Then there's a 2 day gap in rest between the teams, so Penn State should be more well rested than Notre Dame, and maybe that comes into effect at some point during the game. Not something I listed as being a key to the game, but something to consider. My first key to the game officially is going to be the line of scrimmage battle. I think both these teams are going to look to impose their will on the line of scrimmage. I think we have two pretty similar teams here. Notre Dame with Jeremiah Love, and their other running backs are good as well, and Riley Leonard, obviously a threat in the run game. They're going to want to run the ball a lot, I think. I don't think a lot of teams are have tried to force Notre Dame to throw the ball throughout the year, and it hasn't really worked, and they've just continued to run the ball and run the ball really well. On the Penn State side, with two really good running backs in Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, we saw what they did to Boise State. They probably should have ran the ball even more. But I think in that game, they didn't feel like they had to run the ball to win, so maybe wanted to try some other things. I think against Notre Dame, they're going to look to run the ball early and often with their two really good running backs, and all the passing stuff and trick plays that Kodal Nicky likes to call will be secondary. At least that's what I'm expecting from this game. So I think this line of scrimmage battle is something both teams are going to really, really emphasize in practice because they want to run the ball. And I think they're pretty balanced on this front. It's hard for me to imagine one team just completely dominating. I think both teams are similar in talent and physicality, where it'll be a pretty even match, and it'll be the little things that end up winning this game for one of these teams. Speaking of which, I think turnovers are going to be huge because Notre Dame is the best team in the country at forcing turnovers. Now, we've seen them do, like, what they did to Navy was crazy, like a turnover almost every drive. But then the USC game, maybe they would have been an upset alert, but they get two basically 100-yard pick sixes in that game. Then Georgia, they're playing a tight game, and there's just a couple of really critical plays. Trevor Etienne, they forced the fumble there, and then the strip sack towards the end of the half on Gunnar Stockton to take the 13-3 advantage into the half instead of 6-3. Notre Dame's been really good and really timely with when they force turnovers, and I think that's something that's a key to this game here, because although it's really hard to predict, at this point you have to expect Notre Dame's going to get turnover luck. Third, I think Abdul Carter's health. This guy could be the number one pick, probably a top 5 pick at minimum in the NFL draft, an elite edge rusher, and a guy that could just wreck the game. And there's really 3 different ways this could go. He could be out of the game entirely, to like injured, not playing, and then Notre Dame doesn't even have to worry about him. And although Penn State has other good pass rushers like a Denai Sutton, Riley Leonard's going to feel more comfortable in the pocket when he's throwing, dropping back. Overall, Notre Dame's just going to feel more comfortable, and their offense will probably play better. Now, there's the other scenario where he plays, but he's not fully healthy, but Notre Dame still has it in the back of their mind, like Abdul Carter's on that edge, and we know what kind of player he is. And then there's just he's fully healthy, and then he has the potential to just completely wreck the game. I'm talking strip sacks, regular sacks, tackles on running backs beyond the line of scrimmage. This guy can do it all. He's an elite level player that can change the game if he's fully healthy. Obviously, that's why I put him as a key in this game. And then finally, I have whose receivers step up. On the Penn State side, you look to a guy like Tyler Warren, a Julian Fleming. I'm forgetting his name, but they have the fast guy. We saw him in the Boise State game, get a deep ball. But these guys for Penn State, you're looking at step up in receivers because I was alluding to this earlier, but I think Notre Dame and Penn State are pretty evenly matched teams on the line of scrimmage, and I think both will run the ball okay. I don't think either team will be dominant enough where you won't have to, do something else at some point. I think at some point you're going to have to step up in another area. For Penn State, you have Drew Aller, you have Tyler Warren. Kodal Nicky likes to get creative in his play calls, and you'd expect them to have something there. And then on the Notre Dame side, if Riley Leonard's going to throw the ball, you want a guy like Mitchell Evans and their receivers to step up as well. If one of these groups of receiving threats does step up and maybe someone has just, the game of their lives, that could easily be the difference in this game. So who am I going to pick? I think this is going to be the most competitive game of any of the playoff games we've had so far. I think it's a really tight game between two really evenly matched teams. But like I said, I think it's going to come down to the little things. And I think Riley Leonard, his threat with his legs, will give Notre Dame enough of an edge in the run department. And I think they force one or two key turnovers that are the difference in this game. And I'm going Fighting Irish to win it 24-21 in advance to the national championship, and a huge win for Marcus Freeman. And they would face the winner of our second game, Ohio State versus Texas. Now, a little note in this game that didn't make the keys to the game is that this is taking place at the Cotton Bowl in Texas. Obviously, more of a home field advantage for Texas than Ohio State. I expect Ohio State to travel well in terms of their fans, but Texas, I think, is set up well in terms of not having to travel as far to this game. Now, getting into the keys of the game, I think easily the biggest one is the Texas O-line. And why is that the case? Well, I think you look at what beats Ohio State. Michigan beat them because Ohio State didn't play their game, right? They fell into playing the trap of someone else's game, trying to, prove something physically, in my opinion. But when they've just played the game, the only team that beat them was Oregon. And how did they do that? They beat that with Dillon Gabriel playing really well and Everett Stewart torching them in the passing game. So you need a good quarterback who can get the ball out on time, efficiently, down the field to a really talented receiver. Texas has all of that with a great play caller in Sarkisian. Quinn Ewers, Matthew Golden's become a wide receiver one, but even guys like Isaiah Bond, and they have lots of depth at receiver, who I'll talk about in a minute, can step up and make those plays. But Oregon played Ohio State again. Excuse me. And the reason it didn't work out is because Ohio State completely disrupted the game with their defensive front. Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, Tyleik Williams completely turned the game on its head. Dillon Gabriel was under pressure all day long, and Oregon never had a chance. If Texas's O-line plays like Oregon's did in that last game, they're going to be in trouble. And Oregon has a really good O-line. It was up for the Joe Moore Award, I believe. And outside of the first couple games against Idaho and Boise State, really no one had been able to get to Gabriel throughout the year. But this Ohio State defensive front has taken their game to another level since that Oregon game, and really just these past few weeks, that Texas could be in trouble, and maybe Jack Sawyer, Tuimoloau, these guys I mentioned, just completely disrupt the game at the line of scrimmage, and then Texas can't do anything. They need Kelvin Banks, I think, to be healthy. He's going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft in all likelihood. He's got to play great. Guys like DJ Campbell on the O-line got to step up. This whole O-line has to give an A-plus performance, or at least an A-level performance, to hold up against this defensive front. Give Quinn Ewers time to get the ball to your really good receivers downfield. It's the biggest key to this game. Second is the Ohio State wide receivers, and everyone's going to talk about Jeremiah Smith. There's really not much left to say. He's a phenom as a freshman. Pretty much no one can cover him one-on-one, and even their other guys, Egbuka, Carnell Tate, are going to give teams problems. But you are versing Texas, who outside of maybe only, Ohio State, ironically, is the best defense in the country. They have guys like Michael Taff and Makuba, two of the better safeties in the country. Jahdae Barron, one of the better cover corners in the country. So if anyone is going to limit the Ohio State receivers, it's probably going to be Texas because of how good their secondary is, and then also throughout the defense, Anthony Hill, Colin Simmons. They have a great defense that can disrupt Will Howard probably. And speaking of Will Howard, I want to talk about the Will Howard and Ohio State regression. Now, Will Howard, I want to preface this by giving him just a ton of credit. He's been great in the playoffs, and he's really surprised me. Towards the beginning of the year, I almost made a video on basically Ohio State had 21 really good starters, and then they had Will Howard, right? He was like their weak link. And then I felt validated throughout the year because the Oregon game, he basically cost them with his decision making. The Michigan game basically cost them with his decision making. The Penn State game, he could have. And I thought he was clearly the weak link for Ohio State throughout the season. But now in the playoff, he's been lights out, maybe the best quarterback in the playoff. And maybe Ohio State's just fully rolling, full stride. No one's going to stop them, and they're just going to keep rolling teams. Will Howard's going to keep playing great football. But I think what's more likely is he's played maybe his two best games of the season. And I think now you expect him to come back down to earth. And I think it's a bad time because Texas has maybe the best defense in the country. Colin Simmons is going to rush the quarterback. Trey Moore, the interior is going to be good. Anthony Hill's a stud. And like I already talked about the secondary, I think the Will Howard and less so, but Ohio State as a whole are going to, come back down to earth a little bit. They've been playing just A-plus football their past two games. I'm expecting not a bad performance, but a more realistic performance. And unfortunately, I think that comes against, the best defense of the country. So it could look worse than it actually is in terms of how far back they fall. And then finally, the Texas wide receivers. I talked about it with Evan Stewart, what he did to Igbinosa early in the year, I can't remember if he did it to Denzel. Is it Burke? Denzel Burke, I believe is his name. He's from actually Arizona, which is cool. But Denzel Burke and Igbinosa are gettable in coverage. And they'll get some pass interferences. And Texas has the receiver depth like a DeAndre Moore, Ryan Wingo, Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond, Gunnar Helm. That can cause problems. Ewers can deliver the ball to them. Sark can call really good plays. And especially if they are doing this, that can open up the run game for Jaden Blue and Wisner. Maybe it works in reverse too. Maybe Texas establishes the run game, and then the passing game opens. But either way, I think the secondary is gettable on Ohio State, and I do think Texas is equipped to expose them. So though I'm sure pretty much everyone is taking Ohio State to win this game, I'm actually going the other way. I think when you combine they're in the Cotton Bowl with everyone doubting Texas because, they've lost to basically the only great team they played this year in Georgia. They haven't looked great in the playoffs, struggling against ASU. A lot of people thought they were going to lose. And Ohio State has been just looked otherworldly in the playoff. Everyone's going to be on the Ohio State side. But I think Sark has a really good game plan. I think Quinn Ewers' experience is going to pay off. I think the Texas defense is going to step up. I think Ohio State's going to come back down to earth. And because of all that, I think Texas wins it 27-24. I think we really get a really good game here. And I think we get a result that's going to surprise a lot of people. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe Ohio State's just a juggernaut that'll win the national title. I don't think that's how it's going to go, though. I think the Longhorns win it. Now, that's only two games to predict this in this video. So make sure to let me know in the comments down below, who do you have and why. Don't just tell me Ohio State is going to win. You're wrong. Let me know why you think Ohio State's going to win, or why you think Penn State's going to win, or maybe you agree with me. Whatever you do, make sure to leave it down in the comments. Make sure to leave a like. I thank you guys all for watching. Make sure to click the subscribe button. Help me grow the channel. Until next time.